Serra. Ayer un grupo tiene miedo a la imagen, le tienen miedo al recuerdo de Robert Serra, tiemblan con el nombre de Robert Serra. He decidido y le he dado la orden al canciller de la República que iniciemos una revisión total, absoluta de las relaciones con el gobierno de los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica, y en las próximas horas tomemos decisiones de carácter político, diplomático, en defensa de la soberanía nacional, en defensa de la Constitución, en defensa de la democracia venezolana. Tengo que informar que ya capturó violento y también atacaron el monumento.
Because I just messed it up because of what just happened back there. And why is the TV still on? Oh shoot. Okay. Yeah. This is from Press TV. Mandora hails UNSC's meeting on Venezuela as a great victory. This was published on January 27th, 2019.
Well, former United Nations rapporteur on Venezuela, Alfred Adiah, says the U.S. sanctions on Venezuela are hurting the country's economy and killing people there.
Sanctions kill. They fall most heavily on the poorest people in society, demonstratively cause death through food and medicine shortages, lead to violations of human rights, and are aimed at coercing economic change in a sister democracy.
Adiah is also a former secretary of the UN Human Rights Council. He made the comments in an interview with British online newspaper The Independent. Adiah said the U.S. sanctions against Venezuela are illegal and could amount to crimes against humanity under international law. In his interview, he also criticized the UN for ignoring a report that he presented last September following his mission to Venezuela as the first UN rapporteur. Adiah believes that his report has been ignored because it goes against the popular narrative that Venezuela needs regime change.
When I come and I say the emigration is partly attributable to the economic war waged against Venezuela and is partly attributable to the sanctions, people don't like to hear that. They just want the simple narrative that socialism failed, and it failed the Venezuelan people.
In his report, Adiah expressed concern about the use of the human rights issue to discredit the Venezuelan government and justify regime change. He told Independent that the key solution to the country's crisis is dialogue and mediation. He added that only the people of Venezuela have the right to decide about their country's affairs. Joining us now on Press TV's News Review is philosopher and political analyst Andrei Volchek, who's with us from the Egyptian capital, Cairo. Mr. Volchek, welcome to the program. Let's start off with the comments coming from the former United Nations rapporteur on Venezuela, Mr. Alfred Adiah. He says that the U.S. sanctions on Venezuela are turning out to be lethal, as apart from only hurting the country's economy, they're killing people in Venezuela as well.
That's absolutely correct. And we saw the similar situation already in Iraq. We saw similar situation when the sanctions began destroying lives in Iran and in many other places. So basically, it's part of the U.S. warfare against Venezuela. It's not a combat with arms, but it's a combat against the poor people who are denied food, medicine, and other basics. But it's not only United States. It's United States in connection with the elites of Venezuela. These people are doing everything possible to deprive Venezuelan citizens of basics, even things like toilet paper, which in many places became a deficit. And they do it on purpose. They want to discredit the government of President Maduro. They did the same to President Chavez. And the reason is very simple. So people will get fed up and they would go with the opposition. But Venezuelan people are actually very brave, the same as Cuban people. And they are resisting this kind of aggression, and they will hopefully resist until the final victory.
Also, Desaias expressed concern about the issue of using human rights to discredit the Venezuelan government and justify regime change. As you mentioned a few countries earlier, that seems to be the weapon of choice for the United States and its allies.
Of course, what human rights? What human rights are we talking about? The West is bombing half of the world. It's overthrowing governments, even in Latin America. I mean, supporting coups like the recent coup in Brazil, supported coup in Honduras, basically supported coup in Paraguay. So what human rights abuses are we talking about? Venezuela has the freest press in the world. Basically, the criticism that President Chavez and then President Maduro allowed the mass media companies to unleash against the government would be unacceptable in places like United Kingdom. For instance, the defamation law that UK has would put all these people already to prison. But in Venezuela, actually the media outlets are mainly in the hands of the right-wing oligarchs, and they are critical since the revolution, since the beginning of Bolivarian revolution. They are critical of the government, and these outlets are openly functioning. And also the terror that is unleashed against the government and against the people of Venezuela by the right-wing opposition is still being relatively tolerated. Look what is happening in Paris. I mean, it's there they're clashing, they're arresting people, they are using rubber bullets, they are using water cannons. In Venezuela, this happens only when the so-called opposition is beginning to use arms.
And also, Desaias pointed out something interesting in his interview. He said that last September, he presented a report on the situation in Venezuela. Why was that ignored by the United Nations?
Desaias is a very brave man, and what he did actually now talking about all this is very important for Venezuela and for the entire world. As for the United Nations and for the mass media, it's obvious. United Nations consists of the people of the member nations. The funding comes mainly still from the Western countries, and they are blocking United Nations from they're blocking people inside of the United Nations who are honest and who are actually working for the peace and for the interests of the member states. They want United Nations to be totally kidnapped. They want the United Nations to become a mouthpiece of Europe and North America. And these people like him, like a rapporteur, are actually still functioning and based on the old-fashioned and beautiful ideas under which the United Nations was created.
Philosopher, political analyst Andrei Volchev joining us from the Egyptian capital, Cairo.
I bring you to a RT video released today on January 31st, 2019.
With Venezuela in the midst of political upheaval, the country's president has sent a warning to his people. Nicolás Maduro says they shouldn't trust the faked version of events in the country that the United States is trying to promote. He even went further, threatening the US with a second Vietnam-like war.
Since they cannot fake Venezuela and Maduro having weapons of mass destruction to intervene against us, they now make up lies on a daily basis and false news to justify aggression against our country. Let's not allow another war like Vietnam. In Latin America, if the government of the United States intends to intervene against us, they will have another Vietnam, worse than you can imagine.
The warning comes after Washington announced its full support of self-declared interim President Juan Guaidó. With the split becoming deeper by the day, Miriam Emesberg looks at the choices for Venezuela.
Venezuela is a country of two realities. So stark, so profound are the differences in opinion. In one reality, President Maduro is trying to put down a rebellion, stop an upstart, a usurper, Juan Guaidó. He's trying to prevent mutiny in the army, even as we hear calls on CNN to supply rebels with weapons. And he's afraid that Trump has ordered him killed.
No doubt that Trump gave an order to kill me. He told the Colombian government, the Colombian mafia, to kill me. If something happens to me one day, Donald Trump and the Colombian president will be responsible.
There is also a parallel reality, born in no small part thanks to the United States. First, Chavez, now Maduro, have long been a thorn in Washington's side. In this reality, Guaidó is the real president. He is America's candidate. Trump congratulated him on becoming president. They discuss what to do with the former dictator, Maduro. They discuss business, politics. He has America's blessing and its protection.
I reiterate that the United States will hold Venezuelan security forces responsible for the safety of all U.S. diplomatic personnel, the National Assembly, and President Guaidó. Any violence against these groups would signify a grave assault on the rule of law and will be met with a significant response.
Sure, now, with the guarantee of safety, of invulnerability, Mr. Guaidó wasted no time before beginning to issue orders.
Soldiers of Venezuela, today I give you an order. Don't shoot the Venezuelan people. Don't shoot those who in a clear and constitutional way have been defending your family, your people, your work, your way of life. Today, soldiers of Venezuela, I give you an order. Don't repress peaceful demonstrations like before.
Such familiar scenes. We see this all over the world. Palestinians protesting in the occupied territories, the Yellow Vests in France, Catalan separatists in Spain, protesters in the US. But when police bully, beat, and arrest in those countries, that's fine and dandy. When they do it in Venezuela, that's suppression of democracy, an attack on the free world.
Maduro is not the democratically elected president of Venezuela. He tramples democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. The hope for a new start is linked with the only democratically legitimate institution in the country, namely the National Assembly and its president, Juan Guaidó. That's why, together with the EU, we have offered our political support to him.
For the US, Guaidó is the cake, sweet and pliable. But wait. There's icing on top.
Those agreements that have not been recognized by the National Assembly are illegal. We will not recognize illegal agreements. China has to understand that, and Russia has to understand that.
Two realities, two presidents, two governments, two Venezuelas. Of course, it cannot continue like this. A house divided cannot stand. Eventually, these two realities will merge. Let's just hope it won't be through civil war.
And now, this next clip is from RT. It's titled, Maduro Ready to Negotiate Naked, but Guaidó refuses to take part in fake dialogue. So the illegitimate president, funded by the Imperialist sections, I might have butchered his name, so if that's the case, I do not apologize, because I'm on a time constraint. This came out January 27th, 2019. That's when this video was published.
Venezuela's political crisis deepened this week as the struggle for power in the country intensifies. On Wednesday, President Maduro accused the US of attempting to orchestrate a coup after Washington decided to recognize Venezuela's opposition leader as interim president. Juan Guaidó swore himself in as leader earlier in the day as the country was rocked by massive anti-government protests.
I swear to formally assume the duties of the national executive as President of Venezuela.
The United States proudly recognized National Assembly President Juan Guaidó as the interim president of Venezuela.
Today in Venezuela, the president is elected by Washington, and of course they take anyone from the street who wants to be a president.
We're talking to our colleagues in Europe and elsewhere to demonstrate widespread political support for the interim presidency.
Yo estoy comprometido
I am committed to international dialogue. Today, tomorrow, and always. I'm committed and personally ready. If I have to go and meet this guy and climb to the top of Mount Pico Humboldt at 3 in the morning, I will. If I have to go naked, I'll go naked. On foot, by car, by motorcycle.
It must be very clear to the world and to this regime that nobody will take part in this fake dialogue.
Well, Guaidó's announcement drew tens of thousands onto the streets of the Venezuelan capital. It also triggered demonstrations in support of Maduro. During the week, 20 people were reported killed in the turmoil and a further 500 arrested. Caracas-based journalist Norris Argot filed this report.
This has been received in Caracas with both joy and rejection from both parties and both sides of supporters. We are standing right now in a citizen assembly supporting Juan Guaidó and, of course, some of the National Assembly congressmen. But, of course, we want to hear the voices of the people who support and the people who reject this calling for elections and the swearing in of Juan Guaidó.
We're in a situation never before experienced in Venezuela, so people are coming out because this is us, the Venezuelans. It's not the political parties, it's not the National Assembly, it's the Venezuelans who are coming out and fighting for what we want.
The opposition will not return because we support our president for all the right reasons. For our mission, for our homes, for our children. They will not come back.
All the parties understand that color and bias don't matter here. The key thing is to save Venezuela, and that is what we are doing. We're starting the fight.
This is a government of social justice. Our country has many natural resources, natural wealth, and there are many interests that want to get their hands on it. Given these obstacles, the governments of Chavez and now Maduro have made significant progress.
Another update to bring to you. Within the last number of hours or so, Nicolás Maduro has asked the European Union to drop its demand for a fresh election in Venezuela. Now, that's as the bloc earlier said it would officially recognise Guaidó as the country's leader if another vote is not called. The US also urged the United Nations to recognise the self-proclaimed interim president. But the UN Security Council, well, as you're about to see, it failed to reach a consensus.
We're here to urge all nations to support the democratic aspirations of the Venezuelan people.
If one of you can tell me in which article and in which provision of the United Nations Charter you can find the legal basis for the self-proclamation.
This meeting, which we've been forced to attend, is yet another element of US regime change strategy.
Either you stand with the forces of freedom, or you're in league with Maduro and his mayhem.
The United States is not behind the coup d'etat. It is in advance. It's in the vanguard of the coup d'etat. It is dictating the orders.
How indeed can any self-respecting government possibly justify supporting the poisonous regime of the nation-destroying Mr. Maduro?
If anything does represent a threat to peace, it is the shameless and aggressive actions of the United States and their allies.
This discussion in the Council is about the right of the Venezuelan people to direct their own internal affairs and choose the future of their own country democratically.
Just speaking there, that was Donald Trump's controversial chief of U.S. policy on Venezuela. Elliot Abrams served in foreign policy departments under Presidents Reagan and Bush as well. He was twice convicted of deceiving Congress over the arming of Nicaraguan rebels. And he's linked to a coup attempt in Venezuela back in 2002 against then-leader Hugo Chavez.
The democracy of Venezuela must be kept intact. The people of Venezuela fully support their leader, Nicolás Maduro. The Bundist movement, furthermore, denounces the Spanish oligarchs over the Venezuelan proletariat, both indigenous and mixed. Popular democracies must be seen as legitimate. Spanish oligarchic friendship with Americanism and globalism must be seen as imperial cooperation to undermine third world independence. We, the Bundist movement, recognize the democratically elected leader of Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro. we now close our presentation with Jason, the Maoist rebel, on the date of January 26th of 2019, where he covered a pro-Maduro rally in Toronto.
About a few dozen people are standing here outside in Toronto right now, braving the cold to show support and solidarity for Venezuela, which just recently had an attempted coup by Juan Guaidó inside the country. They're protesting mainly the decision by the Canadian Prime Minister to recognize the coup leaders rather than the democratically elected leader, Nicolás Maduro. Since the Bolivarian Revolution came to power, the U.S. and other countries have carried out imperialist aggression against the country. Unending sanctions, threats, and outright terrorism by the U.S. have been used against Venezuela. As some may recall, the U.S. was behind an attempted coup against the previous president, Hugo Chavez. For several days, he was held a prisoner on Margarita Island.
So Guaidó is recognized by 7 countries, and Nicolás Maduro is recognized by nearly 100. The clear aim of imperialism is to overthrow Maduro, as it has been trying to do by credit strangulation, by trade embargo, and perhaps now by military intervention.
As the leaders of many Western countries were quick to recognize the usurper, so was Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He said, "So let me say on behalf of Canada that we recognize and express our full support for the interim presidency of Venezuela assumed by the President of the National Assembly, Juan Guaidó, in compliance with the Constitution of Venezuela." It is interesting that Prime Minister Trudeau would choose the side of the coup plotters, for which they claim that there was an invalid election, of which there has been no evidence actually supporting this allegation. Already the Prime Minister is being accused of supporting U.S. interests by carrying out the arrest of a Huawei CFO. Now the Department of State has appointed Elliot Abrams to lead the efforts in restoring democracy in Venezuela. Who is he? He's a man who was convicted in 1991 on 2 misdemeanor counts of withholding information from Congress during the Iran-Contra scandal. He was later pardoned by then-President George H.W. Bush. The choice of this man is certainly significant. He was guilty in the 1980s of helping carry out a genocide against then the socialist country of Nicaragua. The fact that the U.S. would choose a man like this certainly sends a message to the entire world and the Venezuelans of what their intentions are in the country.
And I was really angry at that, and I went up to the reporter afterwards and I said, you know, what kind of bullshit is this? Honest to God. Many of us here have been involved in Cuba Solidarity for decades, and we've had hundreds and thousands of people come out in support of the Cuban Revolution, and not once has any member of the mainstream press covered a goddamn word about that.
It seems certain that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will not be recognizing the legitimate leader of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, anytime soon. Jason Unruhe, MRN, Toronto. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.